Hey there, Chad here. Thanks for joining me. This is NewsTower, and this is going to be kind of a getting started guide for NewsTower. I don't think it's something that requires a complete beginner's guide level of detail. I think this will be more like a let's play that kind of explains what's going on in this game. I had the opportunity to beta test this about a year ago, a little over a year ago actually, and I fell in love with this game. It is fantastic. The idea is that you own a newspaper and you have to print stories to generate revenue to build your newspaper bigger. Now, there was a disappointing side to that. I did a couple of videos on NewsTower and the beta just suddenly ended one day. And I think they probably had said that it was a time boxed beta at some point, but I missed that. And I was literally in the middle of making like my third or fourth video for it, and I couldn't get back into the game. And that really kind of wasn't awesome. So the game came out in early 2024. I don't remember exactly when. It might have been the very beginning of second quarter. It's been a bit of time at this point. And they continue to make great upgrades to it. In fact, so much so that the few videos I did make for NewsTower I've taken down because it's the same game, but it's very different at this point. The videos might be a little helpful, but probably not. So we're gonna start fresh. Now the first thing I'm gonna do is you hear the music, and I'm talking really, really loud. I think I am anyway. Gonna have to do some sound balancing there. The music in this game is outstanding. This is the one game I have right now that I leave the music on when I'm playing it. Absolutely love this. Wonderful music, but I'm going to yell the entire time, and so I'm going to go ahead and turn the music off for now. And it just makes it a little easier for editing and things like that. Okay, so there you have it. Let's start a new game. Now, NewsTower does offer a bit of a tutorial. They call it an introduction, and I do advise new players to go ahead and play through it once. It'll take 15-20 minutes. After that, though, it's not something that like moves you in the right direction. There's a few things in the introduction that don't really apply to the game so much, and so I kind of I'm going to skip that. I think you can learn this game simply by playing it in its natural sandbox kind of mode. It has some very common themes in how games like this get played, and it has a complexity that you can kind of ease your way into. In fact, I'm not sure that I understand entirely how a few of the game systems work. I kind of know how to manipulate them, but I'm not perfectly sure I understand what the actual outcome is when I get to those things. So what the introduction story talks about is your uncle giving you the newspaper. When you skip that, you just get to name your newspaper here, and I'm going to pick a name that represents a pair of newspapers that were in my area when I was a kid. It's kind of a play on the two names together. Of course, you have to spell it right. The Globe-Dispatch. That looks like I spelled it right. So I'm going to call it the Globe-Dispatch. We're going to confirm that, and it's going to take us to our tower. But our tower is really, really tiny right now. In fact, it's really just one floor. It's just this floor right now. But we can see our wonderful newspaper name here, and we have an address. Oh, I need to hit pause. Very important you hit pause. We've already lost half of Monday because I didn't hit pause fast enough. So that's something to pay attention to. The game works on a weekly schedule. You're putting together a newspaper for a weekly delivery. Each week is also a month. So from a game time perspective, there's 1 week per month and one newspaper is published per week. We will work on the newspaper Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday has the bell. That's because that's the day you print. You go to print on Sunday. Now, you actually can use Sunday for the other stuff. In fact, I usually run the clock to 11 o'clock p.m. on Sunday night to try to squeeze every little bit of good stories out of the reporters that I possibly can. It does have a safeguard that prevents you from accidentally skipping a newspaper deployment. It gives you a pop-up that says, are you sure you want to cancel? Or yeah, cancel the playthrough, and you want to hit cancel on that, not okay, and I've hit okay before and you miss a week. You only generate money in the weeks that you print because you only make money from the copies you sell. That's not entirely true. You have ads that can make money for you, but you do have to print them, of course. And there are missions that are offered by 3 different factions that we'll get into a little bit later, maybe in the next episode. In this episode, I'm going to talk about getting your initial paper set up and getting started. And we have a lot of things we need to place first and a few concepts we'll need to go over, and that's what we're going to focus on right now. The very first thing I want to do is we're going to add a couple of floors. Now we have $15,000 and we do have the opportunity to take out loans if we need to. I'm going to do my best to avoid taking out loans, but we will be cash poor for the first several months of the game. Just something to kind of set some expectations. There's a lot of stuff we have to build and we don't have space. It costs money to get the space and we don't have the machinery and the hardware basically. The softest cost is your employees. They tend to be the most affordable of everything that you're going to do in the game. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to expand already. This just isn't enough space if you ask me to start the paper. We're going to want at least 2 floors, and when I hit the plus here, plus it's going to cost $1,000 to add that second floor. I'm actually going to add a third floor as well, and that one should be $2,500. There we go. So as you can see, it's progressive. Each level of floor, you're going to be spending more. When you get to 9 or 10 levels, they're costing $50,000 and more to build another level. Okay, that'll do it for now. I think we can get by with this much space. Now you'll notice the little no symbol here. It means they're unreachable. We don't have a way to get up here right now. So we're going to build staircases initially. We also eventually we'll have available to us an elevator, and we will use that as well. The way you build in the game, there's a build menu over here. Click that, and here's the different categories of what we can build. And we start with structure, and there's things like walls and doors, walls with doors and stairs. There's a few other things too, but these are where we're going to start. You can build stairs anywhere by dragging, and then if I drop and do this, I can move it to those locations. I'm going to cancel that because another quick way to build stairs is if you start with a doorway, and that's what this is. You can just click on it, drag and drop, and I've now built one stairwell. You can look at stairwells over here. It's one of the menus options that you can do. So you can see that no sign went away. We now can get to here. I'm going to actually build a second set of stairs, but instead of connecting it here, I'm going to do something that I kind of find helpful, and that is we're going to build kind of like a fire escape almost. We're going to go, we're going to go this way and then this way. So we build 3 sets of stairs. We cannot build stairs to cross, so I can't build from here to here. You can build adjacent, so I could start here and I could come down. There's different reasons you might want to do that. One of the things is that there are different comfort factors in the game. We can see some of those here as well. There's nothing to be to see right now because there aren't people and there isn't any machinery. But over time, we will see that there's heat, there's smell, there's temperature, darkness. Darkness is another one that can be a factor, and it irritates your workers, and they're less productive when they're irritated. Okay, so this third one here is the ability to view prestige, and that's not something we start with our brand new newspaper. So we're just going to go back up here to the normal view. It looks exactly like the other one we were just looking at. And we are going to start with some, I'm going to use the word telegrapher. It's radio operators basically, or telegraph machine operators. This is 1930. The way the news comes in is across a telegraph. They will interpret what is going on in the world, and they will, accordingly, they'll track stories and let our reporters know that there's work to be done. So we're going to, again, click on the build menu. Some of the other options here are reporting accessories. Accessories make your workers more efficient is really what it comes down to. Production. So telegraphing is a production skill, and we're going to grab one of these. Okay, a couple of things to look at here. This one has a 3 in this corner. That means that we can buy up to 3 of those right now. That's all we can do is 3 telegraphing stations. There are ways to get more, but at least for now we can only do 3. Typesetting desks, we can have as many as we want. Assembly tables, we can have as many as we want. There are a few things that you can only have one of. They're called unique items, and that makes some sense. Most things are infinite. A few things are like this, where you can't just put as many as you desire. There's a hard limit on this. I think it's 6. And we're going to put the first one here. And we're actually going to do 2 of these up front. I find that to be helpful. The stories, so when you first start out, everybody, when you hire them, they tend to have low skill. And their skill will get better as they do the job, but initially they're not very good at it, and it will take them a long time to do the things that you're needing them to do. So with a skill level of 1, or frankly it could be 0, they will be very, very slow at interpreting these stories and giving our reporters the information to work with. Now that's a lot of words to describe a fairly simple mechanic in the game. We don't, have to interpret the data ourselves. It'll come in on this nice little map and it'll show us where stories are, and we will assign reporters to them. Next up, we need to add some light to our building, and right here we have the power and light. And we start with small lamps, and these just hang from the ceiling. And we're just going to put a few of these around here. It's not a bad idea to have them near stairs. And if there's not enough light, your workers will be less than pleased. So anything we place, if I misplace it or something, there's a couple of things that can happen here. One, I can sell it, but you sell it at a discount. That's something to note. So I paid 50 for this. I think I would sell it for probably 25. Yeah, it sells for half. The other thing I can do is stash it. If I stash it, it goes into storage. Okay, so the light went away, and you'll notice this guy down here got a 1. That means there's a new object in there, and if I click on that, that's where my light went. So I can grab the light out of the storage and put it here. You can also generally drag and drop things. Some things you can't immediately drag. You have to click them, and then you have to hit the move button to move them. There's a couple of reasons that happens. But ultimately, generally, you can move anything anywhere you want. And over time, you are going to rearrange your building more than once. I think it would be very surprising for somebody to have the same layout for an extended period of time, particularly as you add floors. Once we get up to 6 floors, we're going to want to completely overhaul how we do things. So I have the basics here to start getting some news items in. We're still paused, of course. I need to hire people to do these jobs. A couple of ways to do that. I can click on this, which is really the simple way. You can also go over here to hiring, and hiring gives you some personnel options. And there's you have to kind of look through here to see what you want to find directly. When you click here, it just takes you to the page that you want. And that is this page. We want the job bank and we want production. So let's go over this real quick. As you can see, people have salaries. Those are weekly salaries. And you tend to get what you pay for. Higher salaries tend to be people who have better input. They tend to have better stats to start. In this case, it's less about their stats. It's more about these special traits. So Frances here has a trait called quick study. She will level up twice as fast, basically. So right now she has 1 level of telegrapher. I don't know which way you might want to say that. I'm going to say telegrapher. I think it sounds like that's going to feel like what comes more naturally to me. So the telegrapher, she has 1 point in that right now. She can have up to, 7. I think you can go up to 7 points in something, maybe a little higher than that, but ultimately that's the limit. Henrietta here has no points in it. Lionel has 1, and Jason has 1. These all happen to be, these 3 are telegraphers, right? They can, telegraphers. Now I'm going to mess with that word in my head and not be able to pick. Sorry about that, folks. Just going to have to bear with me. But they have that ability. They don't have the other ability, which is assembling and typesetting. None of these have that. But this gal, Henrietta, does. Henrietta will make a good assembler or a good typesetter. Now we talked about Frances's bonus. This on Lionel is also a bonus. It's called Sloth. Now Sloth, he works really slowly. That isn't great, but he's also extremely cheap because of that. So he costs 1/3 of what the cheapest other folks cost. That's not a bad start, but he is going to be slow. It's going to take him, so it's going to take Jason about, I think, 8 hours to work a story. It's going to take, maybe it's 6 hours. It's going to take Lionel 8 hours. It's going to take him about 33% longer. To start with, that's probably not the worst thing for somebody working on the telegraph stations. So I'm going to hire, so I don't want to pay this much for Frances, and Henrietta is not going to be doing this kind of work for us. So we're going to start with Jason. I'm going to hire Jason, and we'll put him on this desk. We can put him in either one. It doesn't really make a big difference. There are some reasons you might want to organize certain folks a certain way. This is not one of them. So it's going to take him 9 hours to do a story. If we drag Lionel on there, and we will go ahead and do that, we're going to hire him as our second one. It's going to tell us, I guess it's going to be 11 hours, 14 hours. Wow, yeah, that's a big difference, right? So it's going to be 9 hours for Jason, 14 hours for Lionel. That's what we're looking at from their skill perspectives. Now we still have plenty to build, but we're going to go ahead and take off pause and start them doing their jobs. And there's a couple of things to know here. We're going to add a couple of comfort items for them. The first thing we're going to add is a trash can. We're going to put a trash can between them. They can kind of share that, and it'll help with trash, of all things. And what you'll notice is this circle is kind of growing. Once it gets all the way around, we will have a news article to take a look at. We're just going to go ahead and wait for Jason's ticker to get all the way around there. There are some other things we can put in here that allow them to work a little more efficiently, and those are under production accessories, and for them a globe helps. Put a globe on his desk, and I'm going to hit space to pause. That sound you heard means that there's a news story ready, and we're going to want to act on that. We're going to go ahead and put a globe on each of their desks. Now a globe is a +1 for the telegrapher, and that means that their skill is immediately 1 higher than it was. So if we look at Jason now, instead of just being a 1, he's now a 2 with I guess a blue bar here. That means he's at level 2 for that. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like you can get out to, is it 10? I think that's 10 arrows there. So you can get to level 10, it looks like. Now, like I said, we have a story that came in. Now, he's still working, but we see his light is on. That means that there's a story. And we also see this little icon up here. It's an exclamation point telling us, hey, click here. And there's the little beats that were coming off it. I think there they are. So, hey, I'm telling you something. We're going to click there. Look at this. There is a story called Deadliest Aviation Accident in U.S. out here on the West Coast. And if we click on that, we'll get some details. This is an interesting one. Usually you don't have this as your very first article, but this one you have to buy a ticket to send somebody to the story. So we would have to click this, and it's going to ask us how we want to go. And depending on the way we pick, it will shorten the amount of time it takes to complete the story. If I send them on a train for $15, it doesn't save any time. If I send them by Zeppelin, it'll save 6 hours, and by plane, it'll save 12 hours. So the difference in cost there, I'm probably going to go ahead and go with Zeppelin, but we're not going to do it just yet. There's another piece we want to look at here. There are 2 possibilities for this story. We're going to need to hire some reporters, and reporters have specialties. Each reporter focuses in 3 areas of journalism. There are 6 categories in the game. The categories are crime, economy, entertainment, politics, society, and sports. And that's the hard and fast 6 story types. There are some other things that get added eventually, like photography and cartography, graphics. There might be a couple of others. We can add ads as well. I think you could probably consider those. But from a journalistic perspective, it's just the 6 story types. This one is a society story. That's what this icon is. And this one is an economy story. That's what this icon is. Then these are tags, these little bronze things here. These are bronze level tags. One is the story type. The other one is a secondary tag, and it attaches, in this case, you can end up with a tragic icon on crime stories or society stories. That's where they're most likely discovered. So when we hire a reporter, they're going to need to be able to do one of these 2 types of stories. So let's go ahead and go out there and look at our reporters that we can hire. The first thing we're going to need to do, we're going to skip this screen for now. I will not hit the don't show, and we'll come back to that at another time. To hire some reporters, I need to build some reporter desks. And we'll do that first. Now, I guess technically I could hire the reporters right now, not have desks for them, and then assign them desks. That just seems silly to me. So we're going to go ahead and buy, I think we'll do 4 desks. That feels like that's eventually efficient. We're only going to hire 1 reporter right now, maybe 2. So let's look at the different tags. Okay, so I talked about the 6 categories: economy, entertainment, politics, crime, society, sports. Hey, look at that. Across these 2 reporters, I cover all 6 story types. That's kind of important. The reason it's important is you want to be able to cover all the different story types, right? Now, we also are eventually going to want some crossover. We're going to want reporters that report on the stories differently. And this is kind of strange. I haven't seen this before that I know of. Across these two, we cover all the categories, and across these two, we also cover all of the categories. That's interesting to me. I don't believe I've seen that before. We have a decision to make here. Like I said, I'm going to eventually hire 4, but initially I'm going to I'll go ahead and hire 2, and I want to cover all the categories. I can go with the cheaper 2. They have no bonus skills, and they only have 1 point of ability each in a story type for now. Or I can hire these guys who have a couple of perks. This one is a big eater, so his nutrition decreases more slowly. That probably sounds a little weird, but basically these people kind of almost live in your building and they need to eat, for instance. They will take breaks to go eat, and when they do, they're not doing their job, so their efficiency goes down. That can be problematic. You have to kind of arrange your building so that things are convenient for folks so that they're not wasting time walking to different things. So we can effectively add, we're going to call it vending machines for now. Honestly, the first one's just a water cooler. We're going to add a water cooler that takes care of the eating for them. But you want that to be in areas that are common so people can get to them easily. Now this guy, his bonus is called Resilient. He recovers from concentration breaks faster. This can be important. Different things can cause a break in concentration. There are events where people will come into the building and upset your workers. Specific kind of event that causes that. They can get upset because of noise or smells or temperature and things like this. And effectively what this does is his efficiency goes back up to 100% much faster than everybody else. Because this is a starting game, I think I'm going to hire the 2 cheaper ones for now, just because I feel like that we can kind of see the growth a little better over time. So I'm going to hire Audrey and Mildred. So first we'll put Audrey here, and then we're going to put Mildred. Now I'm not going to put Mildred right next to her. In fact, I'm going to put Mildred on the other side. We'll put Mildred in between, right there. We'll put them on desks 1 and 3. And there's a reason for that we'll come up to eventually. We're not going to go into depth with it, but there are bonuses that you can share across desks, and they don't need to share any bonuses because they have completely opposed reporting skills. So there's nothing that they can share that benefits both of them. So we're just going to put a space between them, and we'll drop somebody in there eventually that has some of their skills. Let's go back out to the world map, and here's that story again. We're going to click that, and we're going to go ahead and buy that ticket. And I think we're going to do the social one because it has 2 tags, and this becomes important for selling newspapers. More tags is better in the long run. There might be some caveats to that, but in general, more tags means more readers, and more readers means more money. It just so happens that Mildred does indeed have a level in that, so she'll be able to do it a little faster. So I'm only going to buy a Zeppelin ticket. We're going to cut 6 hours off right there. So instead of being 1 day and 12 hours, this story will now take 1 day and 6 hours. And I just happen to know that because we took 6 hours off. So for her to report on it, it's going to take 1 day and 6 hours, except she has level 1 society. So that's going to reduce that just a little bit. In fact, it's going to cut 6 hours off. So we're going to drop her there, and Mildred is now assigned to do this story. So as soon as we take off pause, she's going to depart for this. We could clear this out. If we had another reporter that was eligible for it and we changed our mind, we can cancel the assignment, and it'll put her back out here. And we could actually even change which one we choose to do at that point. But for now, and with no other items to help us make a decision on which one to take, we're going to take the one with more tags. So Mildred is going to go out to the coast and report on the deadliest aviation accident in the U.S. Okay, we're going to hit space to take off the pause, and away we go. Now there are a few things that you're going to need in your newspaper that aren't entirely obvious. Okay, so we're going to pause now. It isn't a bad habit to pause the game when you get new articles that come in. gives you a few seconds to think through how you want to act. And as we get a little further along, you'll see why that might be important. So let's see what this says. Incomplete chain, and that is true. Right now we don't have a complete reporting chain possible. But if we go look at this, I think we can click here. One of these we can click. There it is. We can see she's down to 20 hours on the story. So she's been working on it for a good, I guess that's 6. She's been working on it a few hours. So, okay, we'll come back out here. Now here's another story. This one, well, it requires somebody with society, and currently our society reporter is working a different story. So we can't actually start working this story yet, but this is good. It shows us a different way that this can work. If we had a society reporter available, Mildred, and you can see she's got a different icon here. It shows that she's currently reporting for the next 20 hours. But if we had another one, we could drag them there and it would start that process. When they finish their report, it will allow us to pick one of these stories with either the same reporter or a different one, and we would drag a reporter on to that particular one, and it would continue the process until it's done. There are different arrangements here. This one is effectively you choose one path. There are some where you have to do both to get to the right side of the story and to complete it. There are a few that have rewards at the end that are mysteries, and we'll see some of those here probably pretty soon, usually within the first week or two. I have a dilemma right now. I can either hire another reporter that can indeed work this story, or I can wait until Mildred is done. I think we're going to go ahead and wait this time, actually. We'll see what happens there. Yeah, we're going to wait. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about this real quick. I skipped it the first time, but when a telegrapher opens a line of communication, it will be open for this many days. In this case, 7 days. That means we can access changing this story and who's working on it for up to 7 days. If we choose that we don't want to work this story at all, and there's several reasons we might do that. It's possible that we have made an agreement with somebody not to print any crime stories this week. And this is a crime story, we're not going to want to do it. We just click this and it'll go away. It just disappears, and it frees up the telegrapher to do other work, to find another story somewhere. That's really all this is telling us, and I'm going to click the don't show this message again, and you just do need to remember that. If you choose not to do a story and you want to completely ignore it, you just hit this guy and it'll go away. We don't want to ignore that story. We're just going to wait for a minute. We have a couple of other things we need to do. And I'm going to leave it paused as I get through this next step or two. One thing, we need to hire somebody to clean up. So right now our building is pretty clean, but over time, these folks get messy. There's going to be paper scattered around and just general, living messiness, people moving around, and that the building will get a little grungy. We can deal with that by hiring somebody in a sweeping station. Effectively, we hire a sweeper. That's what their title is, and we put the station there, and that gives us the ability to hire them. We'll click here, and here we go. We have utility staff. There are 4 icons for these folks, although on any particular one, they can only do 3 of the jobs, but I'll point these out real quick. We have mechanics. This is somebody who fixes things. This is a resupplier. They carry things. This is a sweeper. We might end up hiring Barbara for this. And then the last one is a cleaner, washing. Typically they're cleaning the bathrooms is what that's for. All 4 of these people can do sweeping. None of them have any skill in it yet. That's not a real big problem right now. It just takes them longer to actually do some cleaning up. But for now, I'm not too concerned about that. What I am going to say is, probably with money being a concern right now, we're going to take Barbara. Barbara gains 2% speed every month as we move forward. So in December, she's going to be doing 24% faster than she was in January. But at the end of the Christmas holiday, she drops back down to normal speed. So that's something to keep in mind, but I don't have a big problem with that. Let's go ahead and hire Barbara. And we now have a sweeper. So if we unpause, we'll see that they'll do some moving around. She's going to go up the stairs to here. I think if we look, I'm pausing it, if I look at stairs, yeah, you can see them climbing the stairs if you need to. If you're having trouble finding somebody, that's one way you can find them. And she's going to come all the way up here and probably going to clean around these guys right now. These guys are going to get super messy. Now, I don't have anywhere, I need to finish this before Mildred finishes that first story. I think her name was Mildred, right? She's still working on it. Yeah, Mildred, before she turns this in, we have to have somewhere for her to turn it into. So that is a job for the typesetter and for the assembler. And that's going to be next on our list. We're going to hire one of each of those. That is production. And we're going to put in a typesetter. And I'm just trying to decide where. I think we're going to go right here with the typesetter. And we're going to hire an assembler. And we're going to put the assembler on the other side of that doorway. Okay, these are two very important people. When a reporter finishes a story, they bring it to the typesetter, and the typesetter arranges the story for printing. And then an assembler basically is the one who assembles the parts into a cohesive container for it to go to print. So the steps are basically, you get the telegrapher gets the story, gets it handed off to a reporter. The reporter gives their text to the typesetter, and then the typesetter will send it to the assembler. The assembler ends up sending it to the printer. Let's go ahead and hire these folks. The first one would be the typesetter. Now we kind of already saw this. We have Henrietta who has ability in typesetting. We're going to go ahead and hire her. I think that's a good hire. We're going to put her right there. Perfect. And then we need to hire an assembler. We currently don't have anybody who has any skill in assembly. Frances can do it, but she's not good at it right now. She does have quick study, and that is great, but I think I want to maybe see if we can find somebody who's a little cheaper right now. So we can re-roll basically the job staff, and it costs $100 each time you do it. You can do it up to 3 times a week. We're going to just click this, and we'll get new recruits basically. I got 3 of them. This is great. So we have Audrey, who has no particular skill, but or trait, I guess, but she has skill in assembling. This is good. We have Anthony. He is careful. His machine will break less frequently. That's not a bad skill. That when his machine breaks, he can't work, and that impacts his efficiency, and it impacts us getting stories out. We want that to happen as little as possible. We can't hire a maintenance man to fix things, but the fewer times it breaks, the fewer times he has to wait around for the maintenance man. And then we have Ernest here, who is versatile. He gains 50% experience on his unused skills every time he gets skill points. That is kind of a big thing. In fact, you'll notice, now he probably costs more because he has 2 skill points here, although so does Anthony. And Anthony has, you know, a better skill as far as this is concerned. That's kind of interesting. I don't even know what this one is. Caffeine connoisseur, 50% work speed increase for 2 days after drinking coffee. So we can eventually get a coffee machine. When we put in the coffee machine, Rosalie will periodically partake and she will work faster. That's great, but it's not something we need right now. I'm torn between Anthony and Ernest on this. I think I'm going to go with Anthony though, since he's careful. Ernest could really level up fast though, but he doesn't need to use these other skills. He's not like a reporter where he's going to do sports stories and then he's going to do crime stories. He's going to do assembling and only assembling unless we have a reason to replace somebody. So let's go with Anthony. He's cheaper and his skill makes more sense. We now have a complete chain and we'll be able to complete stories. So you'll notice that color that was in this icon has gone away, and it's because the story can now be handled end to end. Okay, unpausing. One other thing we're going to need to do eventually is provide a bathroom for our employees. So let's go ahead and get started on that. That's going to allow us to build out one more room. I'm going to come here to build, and I'm going to leave a little space from this door. We're going to put the bathroom roughly, we're going to start it right here. So I'm going to go up here to structure. I'm not going to put in a solid wall. If I put in a solid wall, people can't pass through that. Solid walls are good. They entirely block heat and sound and smell, but people can't pass through them. We can use a Wall with door though, this will work just fine. People can walk through the door. It does block sound and smell and all that a little bit, just not entirely. Some will seep through, but it is very helpful for that. Then we're going to build a couple of toilets. We're going to put one here and one here, and theoretically you don't have to make this its own room. I think it's a very bad idea not to, but you don't actually have to. Then we're going to add this comfort thing that is interesting. It's called a sink. It's a little surprising that's considered a comfort item, but nonetheless. And we're going to leave room for a second sink in case we need it. That's why I'm moving it over to here. We're going to put in a light. There's a couple of things we're going to put in here actually to make this a little better. Let's go ahead and put the wall up first. So we're going to put a wall here. And as we were putting that wall, you notice what this is showing us is that those three lines that looks like Monster from the energy drink, that is smell. And those bars mean that the toilet smells bad, right? And it's a lot of smell. You'll notice the wall is impactful to that. The one on the right side, this one over here, knocks it down by 2/3, but it doesn't eliminate it. If we were to put this wall in there somewhere, it would certainly help a lot. But we're going to go ahead and do this. The sink helps with smell, believe it or not. I'm going to drop that there. We need to put in a light. People won't like going in there otherwise. Then there's a couple of other things we can do under these comfort items. We can, so when you look at a comfort item, it shows you that this one costs power. We have a certain number of power points we can use. We have 50, currently using 9. A fan helps with temperature, and it helps counter smell, but it takes away from prestige. Well, we're not worried about prestige right now, so I'm not going to even consider that as a factor. If we put in a fan, what we'll see is that it lowers those discomforts there. We can also try an air vent, and an air vent helps as well. Let's go ahead and go with that. And we will go ahead and put a fan in as well. And then there's another one that actually has a huge help, and that is the wallpaper that is in this room. We can come down here and select tile and drag and drop it here, and paint that room as tile, and we will notice smell is almost completely gone now. I mean, it's still there, but it's not horrible. And I think we're going to go with that. I don't know if moving this, it doesn't really help a whole lot over there. So that's okay, and we can put a fan over here too, and that completely counters it now on this side of the wall. So the bathroom is smelly, typically is the case in an office building, right? So no worries there. We now have a bathroom for our folks. We have the telegraphers, we have reporters, a cleaner, an assembly, and a typesetting desk. The only other thing I want to add right now is a water cooler. So they will get food, and in this case, they'll go and visit the water cooler. And we can put a water cooler somewhere that everybody can get to easily. I'm going to put it in here for now because this room isn't otherwise that useful. We'll have some use for these areas soon enough, but for now we're just going to go right here. And that water cooler will get some use. Folks will get thirsty, they'll come and get water, and then they'll go back to work. Now, we could put it right here, but these folks down here, they have to go upstairs, all the way over, back, down, back to their desk. You want to minimize the amount of traversal that they have to do. So we want to put it somewhere that's mutually convenient. We could put a second one right here if we wanted to, and these folks would never leave the room. Now, that is one other thing that I want to cover before we call it quits on this particular episode. What do people have to do? Well, reporters will leave the building, and they will go do a story, and then they will come back, and they have to turn their story in to a typesetter. So when a reporter comes back in, they're going to come up to here, and then they're going to take this stairway to here and hand it to this person. They will work on the story, and when she is done, she's going to hand it to him. We will eventually have a second one of these, actually probably a third as well, but for now it's just the two of these folks. We will have them, this person will pass it off to this person, and then this one will pass it off to the printer, and we'll build the printer in the next episode. I think we're going to go ahead and move forward. That's a really simple process. It just takes a couple of minutes, but this person doesn't actually have to walk to the printer, so he's kind of an end point where we don't need to worry about how much he moves. This person, we do need to worry, she's going to need to move to an assembler. The assembler doesn't have anywhere to go. So reporters need to move out of the building, in the building, find a typesetter. Typesetter has to be able to find an assembler. These folks up here, the reason I put them on the 3rd floor, they never go anywhere other than to the bathroom. They're going to go to the bathroom, they're going to go get food. Otherwise, they hang out right here, and they are perfectly happy with that. One thing I do want to do, the telegraph stations are very loud, so we're going to put in an acoustic panel to help counter the noise. And as you see, if I don't put it in there, they have noise issues there. But as soon as I put this in, those are reduced dramatically, and they probably can tolerate that. One other thing we can do to just make them happier, and for some reason it also counters smell, I have no idea why, we can put a clock in here, and a clock makes them happier. Now here's a painting. There's only one of these. It's unique. It helps with a few things, including prestige. We'll put the painting somewhere eventually, not right now though. We're going to put that there, and we're going to put a clock down here so everybody can tell what time it is, and it makes them all happier and smell less. I think this is a good start for NewsTower. We will learn more about the game loop as we move through this week and into the next week. The first full game loop starts with the 2nd week of gameplay. So we will want to get to that point and check out what happens next in the game. But for now, this is getting started, and we can finish up this week. We'll hopefully have a few stories to put in our newspaper. In the next episode, we'll put a printer up here. I'll show you how that works. And until then, I really appreciate your time. If you are not subscribed to my channel, I ask that you at least consider doing so. And otherwise, thanks and fair travels.